Welcome to Career Insights. If this is your first time here, feel free to follow the section here. This channel is dedicated in helping others learn and succeed as far as leadership is concerned. We interview excellent senior executives and experts on their career journey. And I'm super excited. I actually got tongue-tied that my intro, I completely flubbed, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is that we are here today, and the goal here is to really interview and share some insights as it relates to Sam Gupta. Sam Gupta is a special guest. We are syndicating this on Amazon Live. So if you are watching us on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook, feel free to come over and come to join us here on Amazon Live. Come to careerinsights.live where you can be able to join us itself. So let's talk to me a little bit about Sam itself. Sam has been an enterprise resource planning thought leader in the digital transformation space for nearly 2 decades, with the primary focus on financial systems and ERP. He has been a part of large transformation initiatives for Fortune 500 corporations, but now spends his time consulting the subject matter experts as a principal consultant and CEO of ElevatIQ. Sorry, Sam, I butchered that. How are you, Sam? Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm very good. I'm so happy to be here. I'm super excited to talk to your fun listeners.
Yeah, I'm super excited that you're here as well. And so one of the reasons why, and for those that are just watching us on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook, again, feel free to join us on Amazon Live. We are going to be talking about different products as well. And we just did a whole behind the scenes view for those that are on Amazon Live, just to kind of share with them some of the setup itself. But before anything else, Sam, tell us about yourself. Tell us what exactly is enterprise resource planning, and how did you get started with this?
Well, so I'll give you a little brief because, it's been 20 years and it's going to go really long. So I'll keep it super brief in terms of my introduction. So I grew up in a very manufacturing and distribution centric environment. My family business was that. My parents actually did a lot of manufacturing as well as distribution. So I talk about my first job, and my first job started when I was 5-ish, 6 years old. In our family, there is a saying: if you cannot be on the shop floor in the manufacturing environment, then you should be able to do the accounting, you should be able to count the cash. Okay, so, and by the way, see, back in the days, we didn't really have the digital currency, digital money, so we had to really count the cash. So that was my first job. I spent a lot of time in doing and learning the manufacturing distribution as part of my family business. So by the time I went to college, I knew too much about the business, but one of the things that any teenager would do, they don't want to do what their parents actually did. And it was the same with me as well. I simply wanted to run away from my family, and I wanted to do exactly opposite of what they did. So I found that, software was really cool at that time. I really, when I was in the business at that time, I felt that, the automation could play a big role, especially the kind of, deficiency we had in the business. So that's why I got into the software. I went into our Fortune 500 consulting, did that for roughly 10, 12 years. I was part of, many different digital transformations. Typically, I was sort of the guy who would be put whenever the transformation is probably going to fail. They'll call me, and my role would be to talk to everybody in the company and somehow, fix the situation. So that's what I did as part of that journey. After 12 years, then I thought maybe I should do something of myself, and that's why I started doing a lot of independent consulting. Explored a lot of different ideas from the startup perspective. I chased every other shiny object out there. You name it: fintech, martech, medtech, everything possible. And then finally realized that I was really good at manufacturing distribution. That was my core. When I was doing my Fortune 500 consulting at that time, I knew that it was going to be hard to build a business around software, just because how competitive that space could be. But then I figured, once I did all of that, then I found my focus, and I thought, I am made of sort of the financial systems. sort of the ERP and manufacturing and distribution as my core, that was the birth of ElevatIQ, and that's what we focus on as part of the business. And obviously, we have the community as well called WBS Rocks, which is slightly more community experience where we have several different events, including a podcast where we interview a lot of different executives from the accounting, digital transformation, supply chain, and we have Clubhouse Room. Oh my goodness, so many things out there. Okay, now to your second question, I think you asked about the ERP. How did I get into ERP? I think I answered that as part of the story.
You did, yes. I love it. And I was just curious to know, for those that are not familiar with ERP, what exactly is it, and how does it help somebody who may not be familiar with ERP itself?
So yeah, the way I like to describe an ERP is there are 3 letters in ERP, as you can see. That is going to be enterprise resource planning. Okay, so one perspective is going to, you are looking at the entire enterprise. Some people like to think that, you know what, it is the accounting system, it is the financial system. Obviously, for ERP, the financials are always going to be the base. Anything that touches money in your enterprise, or the dollar in your enterprise, that has to go through an ERP system. So in case of ERP, you have ERP, that is enterprise. Number one, you have to take the holistic perspective of the enterprise. It's not going to be just, let's say, your CRM system or the e-commerce system or the accounting system. It's typically an integrated system that companies buy when they, let's say, outgrow their individual system. For example, let's say if a company is doing roughly $10 million in revenue, $15 million in revenue, that's when they realize that, you know what, I have too many people in my departments, and now the siloed nature of systems is not going to work. So we need something that is going to be slightly more cross-functional, that is going to be slightly more integrated. So that's why we have this enterprise perspective. Then the second, keyword there is resources, right? So resources is going to be anything, and majority of the time, the ERP is going to be slightly more relevant in the product-centric organizations. And when I say product-centric organizations, these are going to be your manufacturing organization, distribution organization, also retail, e-commerce. But any company that produces, let's say, the income statement, balance sheet, is going to require some form of ERP. So any company that you can think of, whether construction, professional services, accounting, legal, whatever, right? Then they all are going to require an ERP system. The third keyword that we have in case of an ERP is going to be planning. We have many different aspects of planning in an ERP system. That is going to be your financial planning. That is the first, because finance is part of the ERP system. Then you have the operations planning. Then you have the supply chain planning. It could be sales operations planning. Typically, HR or marketing do not touch the ERP just because they are slightly siloed in an organization from the operations perspective or from the fulfillment perspective. So that's one way of looking at ERP. The second way of looking at ERP is going to be, if you look at some of the industries such as banking, insurance, airline, travel, these industries, you might not find the ERP as commonly as you would find in other industries such as manufacturing, distribution, or retail. And the reason for that is because their operational processes may be so different that for the operational processes, they are most likely going to use some sort of custom developed software, but they will still be using ERP for their finance or the accounting organization. Okay, so when you are buying an ERP, there is this mindset of product versus build. Okay, so when you are buying an ERP, you are buying a product as opposed to building it yourself. So that's the second perspective from the ERP perspective. I don't know if I answered your question, Bernardo.
You have, and it's very comprehensive, and I love the fact that you were able to break it down, because one of the things that when you think about ERP, and for those that are not familiar with it, I originally was thinking, or probably one would actually think it's related to human resources, but it's a lot broader than that in regards to looking at a company-wide solution when we talk about enterprise, so company-wide solution that allows us to be able to really bring in a whole bunch of functions, whether it's finance, whether it's sales, so that you're able to basically manage those systems overall. And one thing that I didn't quite catch, so what you're saying is that you typically find this type of system within the manufacturing and retail. There was a third one that you said that I didn't catch.
Distribution.
Distribution. So that's where you typically find these types of systems from what you were mentioning, correct?
Yes.
So what attracted you to this particular field? Like, how did you fall in love with this?
Well, I mean, this is what I did, I guess. I mean, see, I just didn't know what I was getting into. So as part of my engagement in the Fortune 500 world, for the most part, I worked in the financial systems. So initially, when I started in this field, I mean, I didn't necessarily choose it myself. That was my first job just because I had the business background, I had technology background. So, I applied for this job and got it, and they really liked my profile because typically for an ERP system, you need to be number one, you have to have a lot of business background. You have to have the business knowledge. You need to understand accounting. You need to understand technology at a deeper level. And typically, it's very hard to find a person that is going to have all of these skills. Sometimes you will find people, just with technical skills or the functional skills. But the most important part in case of an ERP is going to be your business and functional skills. Then 30% is roughly going to be your technical skills.
Fantastic. So for those that are watching, if you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook, feel free to come over to Amazon Live, where we are speaking with Sam Gupta. We'll talk about some products as well that he recommends, but around ERP, understanding his journey. And if you're new to Career Insights, hi everyone, I am Professor Tirado, and I primarily focus on interviewing experts and senior executives, I can't speak, to be able to understand their career journey, so that if you're interested in making a career change or interested in a different industry, you're more than welcome to ask questions. I also focus on sharing tips and tutorials primarily around the psychology behind work. So if you're having issues at work, how to go about managing some of those issues. But we won't be covering that today. But regardless of that, I wanted to just welcome again Sam for being here with us. And so when we are thinking about ERP and we think about the evolving technologies, so a lot of industries and jobs are being affected by robotics,
Yep.
by artificial intelligence, and it's not just being in corporate. You have retail, where nowadays you are actually going into the store and putting your order on a screen, and also seeing some even trailers, tractor trailers working autonomously. How do you see a lot of the automation, whether it's AI, machine learning, or even robotics, affecting your industry primarily as it relates to ERP?
Well, so ERP is always going to be this glue of the organization. So at any time there are going to be any technological improvements, whether you talk about AI, robotics, they all are going to touch ERP in some shape or form. For example, when you look at the ERP innovation, and people often mistake that ERP systems are very outdated. They are very legacy. They are not as user friendly. But the amount of innovation that goes in an ERP system is just phenomenal. It's mind blowing. If you connect in the ERP ecosystem, their priority always is going to be the financial regulations, because ERP is a business system. ERP is an accounting system. ERP is a financial system. So if they cannot comply with the regulations that are changing on a daily basis, as soon as government changes something, that has to be reflected in case of an ERP, right? So that is always their first priority. The second priority is probably going to be your technological improvements. As you know, in the financial organizations, things like AI, they are very well penetrated. So when you touch an ERP system, when you look at an ERP system, you might not feel that AI is helping you, but AI is embedded in every single process. And the reason why you would find the modern ERP systems to be slightly easier is because AI is working in the background to make your life easy. Now, coming back to your point about things like robotics, or any of the improvements that are happening from the industry 4.0 perspective. Now, when you look at the entire ecosystem, all of these technologies, they rely on integration. They all need data. If they don't have the cleansed data from the business perspective, from the operations perspective, these technologies may not work. For example, I mean, see, when we talk about robotics, is really the data collection in my mind, right? You are automating some of the operational processes, but they still rely on your business data. You still have to talk to ERP. So if you are not able to communicate to your ERP using whatever new technologies you are using, then you are going to be disconnected from the operational backbone of an organization. And the more connected you are with the operational backbone of the organization from the technology perspective, the more important you are going to be. Your CFOs will be happy to cut a check for you if you can convince them that, okay, no, technology is really helping drive your operations. Then you're really going to be important inside the organization.
You bring up a really excellent point when it comes to data itself, and that is in a lot of companies, the data management process is always a bit of a challenge. And a part of it has to do is anytime you go through the data cleaning, the issue is that unless you have a way to contain how data goes in, it winds up getting all completely, I don't want to say dirty, but there's always some level of corruption that happens in the data itself. So if data is something that's driving a lot of the ERP, how do you ensure then that there are controls in place so that you're not having data discrepancies that are coming in from different systems?
So the reason why people hate ERP is because they are supposed to be very difficult to use. And the reason why they are so difficult to use is because they are ensuring the financial control. And nobody or none of the systems in the market put as much financial control or the technical control as an ERP system. And the reason for that is because they are trying to ensure data integrity. They are trying to make the life easy of the user who is entering the data, right? So if you implement it right, now, if you are going to use a very loose system, which is going to allow you whatever you want, now that could be an easy system. But from the maintenance perspective, in the long term, it will be very hard to use. So yes, in case of an ERP system, the training may be slightly harder, because what ERP is telling you is, and the data issues are going to be as simple as, let's say, if you have a company, ElevatIQ. Now, I like to enter it as ElevatIQ. Bernardo, probably you like to enter it as ElevatIQ, comma, space, INC. Now, from the system perspective, this small change is going to be a big deal from the data perspective, because if you, let's say, enter a customer or a vendor using this, and then let's say if your system does not have some sort of control where the system can validate this information, then you are going to have two instances of the duplicate vendor. From the finance and accounting perspective, that's a nightmare, to be honest, because once you start adding the transaction on these master entities, it's very, very hard to reverse these things in case of an ERP system. That's why when you compare, let's say, your HCM system or the CRM system and ERP systems are going to be super hard to use, super hard to learn. Okay, your CRM systems are going to be easier. And the reason for that is because they allow far more flexibility as compared to an ERP system. So it's a balance whether you want a system that can be easily learned versus you want a system that has the appropriate financial control for your organization to be sustainable in the long term.
Yeah, and it's interesting you're talking about, like, for example, the naming conventions in this example that you provided. And I see, for example, and I don't think many companies are doing this internally, using some of the blockchain technology to have golden source data. I know that, for instance, many, many years ago, it was a common practice for customers to enter information on a form He would go into operations, and there was a process and a practice that existed called dual keying by operation. So what that means for those that are watching is, let's say you get an application, they get it via, this is going many years ago where you had a fax machine. For some of you are like, what is that? But a fax machine, and they would get it. And what would happen is someone would actually take that form, enter it into the mainframe, and then give it to somebody else who would rekey that information into the mainframe again. And if they would enter Bernardo with a capital B, and everything else small letters, and the other person did a small b, it would reject that actual form, and it had to be rekeyed again. So it's interesting that you talk about how the actual naming conventions also result in duplicative data as it relates to what you find in there. So I wanted to just, for those that are watching, again, if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter or on Facebook, feel free to come and join us here on Amazon Live, where we're having this very in-depth conversation with Sam Gupta about enterprise resource planning. We just covered a little bit more about the data aspect and where I'm going to be going. And if you want to join us, feel free to go to careerinsights.live. That's where you're able to join us directly onto this live stream here on Amazon.com, Amazon Live, as well as any of my previous videos. But what I was going to ask Sam, so if someone was interested in making a career change and actually is interested, we talked about data, we talked about having a centralized system that is, again, mainly used in manufacturing and retail, what would one need to do to make that transition? What advice do you give to someone, whether they're out of school or looking for a role or looking to change? What would you advise them to consider if they're looking to shift into this particular field of work?
If they are, let's say, looking to get into either the ERP field, I would like to ask, okay, what are the core reasons why you are switching here? Is it primarily because you feel that this field is probably going to be lucrative, and that is probably going to be the first, thing that everybody answers when they look for a job? In my personal advice always is going to be, reflect on what you are made of. Reflect on what defines you. Reflect on how your experiences, learning, and education have been. And let's say if you have a lot of manufacturing, accounting background, you did study that in your university, then that could be a right fit. If you are simply trying to switch to a completely new field, obviously you need to learn a lot. So sometimes I think there is this notion, especially in the job market, with the people who are trying to switch their career, is because I don't like my current job, I want to switch to the next one. And my advice is always going to be, figure out how you can start liking your current job, because you can be cool in any job depending upon how you position yourself, depending upon how expert you are. You can make as much money in any profession out there. You can define excellence in any career profession out there. So just aim for that excellence, as opposed to chasing those shiny objects the way I was chasing, and I had to learn it hard way. Now, nobody talks about ERP as such. If you go for a career advice, I don't know how many people are going to be talking about ERP. They are probably going to be talking about AI, blockchain. And that's what I would do if I were, if you asked me 10 years back. But now I know who I am, what defines me. And my role and goal is going to be, how can I make ERP cooler? Because I'm super passionate about that.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I do agree, basically being intentional as to where one goes. And for those that are just watching, welcome. We are here with Sam Gupta. We're just basically asking him a bit how to break into the ERP. One thing also I'd also share is that if you are looking to break into technologies, maybe not necessarily ERP, there are a lot of companies that are training you on the job. So long gone are the days and this demystifying to break into tech. You must go through this traditional path. And it's not to say and discourage anyone from going to university and getting a degree, but because there is such a high demand for people in tech, there are a lot of companies out there, very large tech companies like Amazon, like Google, many of them that are actually teaching and training people who have little to no tech experience to join their organization, which I think is fantastic. What is very critical to their success are their interpersonal skills. So maybe not the technical skills, but the interpersonal skills. And that's where I come in and I can help you out. But outside of that, I do think that that's something that is important to talk about. And wanted to just get your thoughts on that. Like, do you think nowadays someone does need to, can someone with minimal experience break into tech? And I know we're not talking about ERP, but just wanted to get your thoughts because you are in that tech world. Wanted to get your thoughts on that. Do you think that's accurate? Wanted to just get your thoughts.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, you can break into tech. You can also break into ERP. There are a lot of different options out there if you really want to, let's say, break into ERP as well. For example, one of the things that you can do is you can go for a lot of consulting firms. They hire a lot of fresh graduates because what they are trying to do is they cannot find the experienced resources, so they have to hire the fresh graduates. So even in case of ERP, there are going to be tons and tons of opportunities. Obviously, in case of tech, oh my goodness, there are so many different organizations, and I'm probably, if you Google, okay, the code school, I don't know how many are there, to be honest. I mean, if you get involved in your local startup chapters, there are going to be tons and tons of these chapters involved with the startup space. So as soon as you start talking to these founders, they are always looking for young talent that is really hungry, that the talent who is willing to learn, willing to put the effort that is going to be required to succeed in a tech career. Obviously, it's not going to be an easy ride. It's going to be difficult because in case of tech, everything changes on a daily basis. So you have to learn a lot. You have to put a lot of effort. But if you are willing to put the effort, then obviously there are tons of opportunities. So if you are trying to break into tech, my suggestion to you is going to be get involved in the startup space. If you are trying to break into ERP, probably you are not going to find as many opportunities in your startup, but get involved in organizations that care for manufacturing. And then you might be able to find a lot more opportunities in the ERP space.
You reminded me of something as well that I'm going to share with those that are watching. There is a program that Amazon actually has that's called Restart. I have to find the links. I'm going to see how I can do that behind the scenes. But if you Google Amazon Restart, it's not only breaking into tech is not just only for the young. You could be unemployed or underemployed. This program specifically is designed to help people break into tech, and doesn't matter how old you are, they will teach you all the skills necessary for you to be able to have a successful career in tech. So if you are watching, whether you're watching on Amazon Live, on YouTube, Twitter, or on Facebook, and know someone that's looking for or looking to break into tech, again, unemployed or underemployed, just go into Amazon Restart. I'm going to have to look for the link itself. I can't really remember where it is, but want to make sure that I can share that with you. So wanted to just make sure that that is something that you're aware of, that that's a resource. And there are many other resources equally available that allow you to get into tech without having to have all the technical skills and experience necessary to break in there as well. So again, it's called Amazon Restart. What I'm going to do is once we start going into the products, because Sam, we're going to be talking about some of these products, but I know some of the folks that are on YouTube, Twitter, or on Facebook may not be able to see that. So we're going to kind of shut that live off. And if you're there, please come over to Amazon Live and you can see some of the products that we're going to be talking about. So Sam, the last question I have before we start to go into some of the product reviews is, what's next for you? What's the next on your horizon?
So yeah, so in my case, what I'm looking to do, as you know, we have the community as part of WBS Rock. To grow that at this point of time. Right now, we have roughly 200 to 300 different executives that are part of the community. My goal is going to be to grow that to, let's say, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. That's my personal goal. And obviously, we are trying to grow our business as well, which is ElevatIQ. Because of COVID, there have been a lot of challenges from the sales and marketing perspective. So right now, our goal is just to survive until we become stable. And then we are going to go to our growth trajectory the way we had planned to grow.
Fantastic. I'm super excited. And I actually was able to quickly look for the link on Amazon Restart as well. Sam, thank you so much. Don't hang up. I'm just going to click some buttons behind the scenes to shut down the lives from my other channels. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Twitter, or if you're watching on Facebook, I tried LinkedIn, but I didn't get that process in. That's fine. Feel free to come over to Amazon careerinsights.live. We're going to be talking further with Sam about some of the products. And if you're on Amazon Live, thank you so much for being here with us. We're going to talk about some other pieces as well as to when we talk about data, how to make sure that you have the right equipment at home to not only protect the data that you have, but should you be renting out, some storage to third parties and instead maybe have something specifically at home. So bear 1 second with us while I kind of make some of the transitions on the back end. Sam, do not hang up. I'll be right back. I'm going to move this over and make some changes on my end. Give me 1 second. And thank you for your patience. And thank you again, Sam, for being with us today. All right. So we're back on Amazon Live. If you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Okay,
you.
perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what happened on the back end, but I tried to edit this. It looks like it's not letting me edit it. Hold on 1 second. You know what? C'est la vie. It's not working, but it is what it is. So let's get going. So if you are watching us, I try to, for those that are watching on other channels, I try to break it down so that you're not, you won't be able to see some of the products, but that's fine. For those that are on Amazon Live, you'll be able to see it. So Sam, when we were talking about data, one of the things that I'd like to get your opinions, I had this whole episode focusing on personal cloud storage, having your own home cloud. What are your thoughts on that? One of the products that we first initially are talking about is around a My Home Cloud system. What do you think of having a home cloud system itself?
So I'm not too sure if I'm familiar with the term, to be honest. I'm going to be completely honest here.
That's fine.
Do you want to clarify what that is?
Sure. So what we're talking about is basically the system that you're able to save your, so instead of having like a Google Drive, you're
Yeah.
actually having everything saved on like your own cloud system itself. So it's
Okay.
it's not a Google Drive specifically.
Okay, I got it. So yeah, I like to clarify just to make sure that I'm not assuming anything. Obviously,
Sure.
that's very exciting if you have something of that sort, because I have never heard of that, to be honest. Okay, so in my case, what I know of is going to be your cloud systems, which is going to be your Dropbox, Google Drive, or any of those, or OneDrive, or you are keeping your data on your laptop or your hard drives, which is I personally don't like. So, in my case, the only options I have really are the shared cloud drive. And if I had an option to be able to use the home cloud, I would rather be using that, because then my data is going to be protected in my personalized space, but I'm going to get all the benefits of the cloud. So, which is, in my opinion, is a marriage made in heaven. So yeah, so I would definitely check that out, and I don't know who is providing that. Maybe you can provide some more insight, but home cloud is definitely very exciting overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not really sure what's going on with my system, so I'm gonna have to check to see if I am frozen. Hopefully I'm not frozen, or we're not frozen. I don't think we are we?
No, I can hear you fine.
Oh, you can hear me. So it's my system. So on my end, my system is frozen. That's fine. So that being said, why don't we continue? So the actual cloud system that I'm referring to, like for example, is Western Digital. So Western Digital
Okay.
has the older kind of external where you can put your photos, you can
Yeah.
put videos. And so when I think about the cloud system, you have like Google Drive, Dropbox,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I think about is privacy of data. And I know
Yeah.
that these are very big businesses that have that ability to save information in there. But if you think about terabytes, and again, how much information. So if you're using and downloading a lot of videos or have a lot of pictures or information, 2 terabytes, for instance, on a yearly basis costs about $100. And so when you add that up after 2 years, that's $200 just for two
Yeah.
terabytes. And it's 2 terabytes per year. So the threshold is 2 terabytes. Whereas you can get 4 terabytes for $180 and it's yours forever. So that's where I'm saying, like, it makes sense sometimes to just go ahead and make that purchase and have the same sort of functionality where it's yours, you're able to store as much as you can. And in the long term, it's cheaper for you than being able to rent the space. So that's really where I was talking about, like those kind of Dropbox-ish type of situations. And now you're not unfrozen. Sometimes this laptop is a little wonky and I need to upgrade it so I can see you. So and if you're watching on Amazon Live, feel free to ask any questions. We're talking about the cloud systems now. We moved on from ERP, data, how to start a career in there. And if you're also just joining, if you're interested in breaking into tech, there is demystification that you need to have a degree to get into tech. There are a lot of programs. I actually put one in the link in the chat that for those that are unemployed or underemployed, or even if you're looking to break into tech, how you're being trained to be able to do that. So the question I was raising to you, Sam, was around that type of system. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I would definitely go for it. And this is exactly what I was thinking in terms of the product itself. Just because, I have seen this pattern in the enterprise space, because you have your public cloud and you have the private cloud, right? So in the in the consumer space is how I like to define this, right? So this is slightly more consumerized. In case of in the consumer space, I have never heard of the private cloud or the home cloud, as you are referring to. But this is so powerful. I mean, I absolutely love the concept, just because obviously if you are concerned about data privacy and you are afraid of going to cloud just because of that privacy issue, obviously home cloud is phenomenal. And I don't know how much is going to be the price difference. Personally, me, let's say if I were to sort of choose this product, I would go for that. I would probably pay 10 to 20% extra just to have that sense of security, because as you know, right now the data security and even in case of cloud, I think it's not easy to manage. So if somebody is doing that for you, I would definitely pay premium for that.
Yeah, and as you can probably see on your screen, I've actually was able to highlight the product itself. And as I mentioned before, my system was acting up a little odd. But see, this particular one, which is a Western Digital, is 4 terabytes. It's actually 10% off. It's typically $199.99. It's at $179.99. And you're right, being able to have something where you own it, you're able to manage it appropriately. It allows you to just make sure that you have everything stored in one place. And traditionally, the ones that I used to have, and this is the other one that I wanted to share for those that are watching, is this other one, which is the Western Digital. This is a traditional one. This is wired.
Yeah.
So if you're not looking for something that is a cloud-based or home cloud-based system, you can get something that's a little bit even cheaper. This is 50% off. Usually it's $300. It's like $150, and it's 8 terabytes. So this, obviously you have to connect it to your computer. It's not like the other system where you can actually literally go onto mycloud.com and basically access all your files. This one, you'll have to be able to be based on your computer itself. So if you have a lot of videos or pictures, those are some options that I think people could consider in regards to home storage, home personal storage, especially as we tend to accumulate a lot of information. So the other question I had for you, especially since we're talking about technology, is around, the routers. The other area that I always wonder as well, and I just added a few in the carousel. So those that are watching, I'm not going to go through every single item in the carousel, but I have Sam here who is in technology. We just talked about enterprise resource planning and how to go about ensuring that you have the right equipment as it relates to data, safeguarding data, being able to transmit data. And one of the things that I've always mentioned, I think on Monday was around the fact that when we think about cable providers, usually you get your modem, you get your router, and they charge you a fee for that. Unless you look at your bill, you'll see that they charge you. It's not free. You basically a rental. And so what I've always encouraged folks to do is to perhaps take that, instead of paying that fee, just buy your own. And one recommendation that I made, especially when it comes to routers, is to change it maybe every 3 to 5 years, because the technology is constantly changing. And also, depending on where you live, the rate of data speed is also changing as well. So you want something that can maximize the capacity when it comes to Wi-Fi. What are your thoughts on, either changing it every 3 to 5 years or buying your own?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend changing it. And I am not necessarily into the networking technology, so I cannot really speak for the technicals. But typically, when I speak to my friends and I am asking their advice, because it is their expertise, right? So they always advise in replacing majority of the technology platform that we use on a daily basis. Because even in case of hardware, as you correctly pointed out, that that's going to have some sort of shelf life. Yeah, if you don't upgrade them, then you are going to run into the security issues, as you pointed out, and also the data issues. So for 100%, I'm with you on that. That we should definitely be upgrading and updating every 3 to 5 years.
Thank you. And so one of the things I did add into the actual carousel are several different options and different price points depending on your budget, but there are several different sales that are going on in relations to that. And then the other two items that I guess wanted to just cover is also cameras. So we're on calls, ever since being the pandemic, we're constantly on video. Any recommendations on your end? Like, what's your favorite camera that you use, or anything that you think people should be looking out for when they are looking at cameras itself?
To be completely honest, I was actually going to do the research myself, just because I'm really using my laptop camera at this point of time and I'm not really happy about it. Okay. So my goal is going to be, as soon as I find some time in doing the research, and maybe this is the right time because you are going to tell me so much as part of this episode, I would like to have multiple cameras so that, my meetings are going to be slightly better. At this point of time, when I do the meetings, I don't really have multiple cameras as part of the meeting, and sometimes it's just harder because in our case, even in case of ERP, we have to demonstrate, let's say, the barcode scanning. We have to demonstrate mobile, so I cannot really do this in multiple direction. And I don't know if these cameras actually allow to capture at multiple angles, or if they rotate. If they do that, oh my goodness, I mean, see, I'm gonna look into this one.
So I definitely have one to recommend. It's this one right here. And it's maybe a little biased because, and for those that are watching, I'm going to open up this back camera that I have here so you can see this one. And so I am actually speaking through this Logitech Brio Cam. And the reason why I recommend the Logitech Brio Cam, especially this one, there are a lot of Logitech ones. The one that you're looking for is going to be a lot more pricier, where it moves with you. The challenge I've had with the webcams, and this is just webcams in general, is that the sound quality isn't always the greatest. So you have to be able to buy a microphone, which we're going to talk about in a second, to be able to pick up your voice in a way that will sound clear and crisp. But the reason why I like this one, and I actually was playing with my other camera, my older camera, which is a C930, this one does not require a lot of light. So I actually could shut this off a little bit. This is not adding much light right now. And as you can see from my monitor, or from that middle image, on the left-hand side is my window. And so that is the light that but it's pretty sunny outside. And so there's very little lighting that I need with this camera. And that's one of the reasons why I like this one and I recommend it, and it's 10% off. So I will definitely make sure that if you're looking for new cameras, I will recommend this one. And just to point out one thing, the last time I talked about web cameras, this camera over here, which I think, let me see, is it here? No, it's not. I'm gonna highlight it in the carousel. It's another Logitech. It was actually cheaper. It was at $175. The price has gone up to $203. So one thing to keep in mind is that if you are going to be shopping for any new equipment, there is a shortage on silicone and silicone chips and silicone stuff. So a lot of the tech equipment is going to start to go up. So if you're starting to see deals, try to take advantage of them while you can. And then the last one I was going to mention is microphones. I don't know. Are you using a microphone or using the laptop microphone?
In my case, I use Blue Yeti. So that's because I'm a podcaster as well. You are using the same.
I love my Blue Yeti. I try not to have it in my face because it looks really offensive. To be very frank with you, it's like my friends make fun of me when they're watching me on live. They're like, why is that so close to your face? But anyway, so you love the Blue Yeti. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yes, so do I. I love the Blue Yeti. One thing I did want to point out is the Shure microphone, which is typically $500, is 20% off at $400. It's pretty pricey. So if you're going to buy it, make sure that it's an investment that you can maximize. This Blue Yeti, the one that I have, the one that you're using, wasn't actually, it's not it on this picture. I didn't add it in here, but it's in the carousel, was for, I think it cost like 160 or 70 when I first bought it, but it's at 129. Again, just look at the carousel. I'm highlighting it. I thought I had it, the image uploaded to be able to see, but it's not there. But again, a few options there that you can consider. So Sam, I really appreciate you being here with me, being here on Amazon Live. I don't know what happened with my other, being able to disable the other live streams. So I'm sure if you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook, you're like, why is this guy talking about products and I can't see it? Well, you should be coming over to Amazon Live and join us so that you can see those products that we're talking about. And if you're just joining, welcome. Hope you're having a great day. We are here with Sam Gupta. He just finished covering everything about ERP, enterprise resource planning. And if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat section. And I will be back tomorrow with Elizabeth Herron, who is the author of like 5,000 books. I'm kidding. She has several books focusing on project management. So feel free to join us then. Sam, any last minute words before we shut down the live on all fronts?
Yeah, my last words are going to be just be focused and believe in whatever you do. Just because a technology is going to be cooler or your friends are going to be cooler than you, it does not make you any less cooler. So believe in whatever you do, just excel there and excel to an extent that everybody is going to come after you. So on that note, I thank you so much. I had a blast.
Fantastic. So Sam, don't hang up yet. I'm gonna do my outro and then we can connect one more second. All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for being able to join today. I really appreciate it. If you've been here this entire time on Amazon Live or any of the other channels, thank you again. I really appreciate your support. I love the ability to be able to share with you any new information as to different careers or different products. My focus here is to make sure that your life is easier through either products or services that I'm able to share with you. So if you liked what you saw, or if you really enjoyed the conversation or any of the products that I shared, don't forget to hit that follow button, especially if you're on Amazon. But if you're on any of the other channels, feel free to hit follow. Love to be able to share, again, more information. We're going to have another Mother's Day review next week. Again, thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.